Welcome to Womack Chapel. Okay, so today we're going to start a series, What the Bible Teaches. This is based out of a Bible study series from R.A.TORREY. We're going to start chapter 1, What the Bible Teaches about God, God as Spirit. Alright, we're going to basically try and go through some of the attributes of God and look at the biblical verses that teach us who God is and about his character and his being. So the fact that the God is spirit. So we'll start with John 4:24. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So the Bible plainly states at the beginning, God is spirit. God is a spirit. In the beginning was God. So right at the beginning of the Bible, we're told that God is, and there's no argument to claim any particular physical reality about God. It just says God is. So the first proposition that we're looking at is God is spirit. So what is spirit? What do we mean by that? So we'll go to scripture for our answers. So Luke 24:39. Behold my hands and my feet, that is I myself. Handle me and see. For a spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have. A spirit is incorporeal, invisible reality. To say God is spirit is to say God is incorporeal and invisible. So obviously this was Jesus talking here if he'd risen from the dead. And he's saying that he has arrived from the grave. He has a resurrected body, but he is a spirit. And he says, a spirit hath not flesh and bones. But Jesus in a resurrected body has a physical presence. So he's making a contrast there between spirit and body. So what's it say when it means God created man in his own image? So we'll just have a look at Deuteronomy 4:15 to 18. The distinction between God as a spirit. So obviously Jesus coming in the flesh is God stepping into another realm. And when Jesus rose from the dead in the resurrected body, like we're going to receive, God's once again speaking into a different realm. And he's appearing in a different realm. So when God appears to man on earth, God is coming into our dimension, which he's created from his dimension. So he's entering our world. So in Deuteronomy 14, verses 15, and we're going to go to verse 18, talking about the difference between God and other so-called gods. Therefore be very careful yourselves, for you saw no kind of form on the day that the Lord spoke to you in Horeb, out of the midst of the fire, lest you corrupt yourself and make for yourself an engraved image, the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water beneath the earth. So God does not appear to man in the form of God, to Israel, in a form that could be represented by a statue or an image or a carving. So we should not represent God in that manner. So statues of God, even pictures of supposed God, is not a representation of God. It's not something we should be participating with, because God doesn't appear in that form. Other religions have statues of their gods. Religions in the Bible, we talk about Dagon, and how there was a statue of Dagon and he fell over and broke on the threshold. So other religions other than Christianity are quite prevalent in having images of their supposed God, which is in contrast to Christianity, where we are told that God is spirit. So what's it mean when it says in Genesis 1:27 that God created man in his own image? The answer to this question is plainly given in the following passages. So Colossians 3:10, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. So we're not saying here that God has created us in a physical image of himself, but a spiritual image. Ephesians 4:23-24. And be renewed in the spirit of your mind, that you put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. We're talking about the character of God here. Colossians 1:15. Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. Now if we go to 1 Timothy 1:17, we will see that it says here, now to the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, be honour and glory forever and ever. Amen. So God is the one who has glory, and God is the one who's immortal, and God is the one who's invisible. So he's not a physical being that we can represent, or a physical entity, because God created matter. Think about it. What comes first? Consciousness or matter? So does matter create consciousness? So what we're saying is that does matter in itself create the ability to be aware, to think, to reason? Or does a reasoned intelligence create matter? So God is spirit, and God created the material universe. So by trying to put God in the material universe before the universe was created, by saying God was a corporal physical form, is to deny the fact that God created all matter. The words image and likeness evidently do not refer to visible or bodily likenesses, but to intellectual and moral likenesses, likeness in knowledge, righteousness and holiness of truth. So we saw the words in Ephesians, and in righteousness and true holiness. And before that it says after God. So talking about the character of God. So man was given the ability to reason, to make moral decisions, and to choose for the right, but to have God's laws engraved on our hearts. So you think of the Ten Commandments, excluding the Sabbath, which is the sign of the covenant with Israel. The other 9 commandments are present in every culture, in the sense that every culture has a conscience which determines that murder and adultery and stealing and lying are wrong. Now, if we're just evolutionary beings, how can that be? These are moral judgments. These are moral attributes. And even cultures that have not heard the gospel know those things are wrong and judge against them in their societies, because they're built into our system from God. He's implanted his moral values inside of us. Now we can deny them, and we can rebel against them, and we can even subdue them by ignoring them and suppressing them. And the Bible talks about that in Romans. Go read Romans 1, Romans 2 to understand that. But the point is that God has created us in his image, the image of the ability to be morally right and to understand good and evil. Now, in the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, if we view that and we see the effect that had, what it actually introduced to Adam and Eve was the ability to understand evil. They already knew good. So they knew that it was wrong to take of the tree. But to understand and to partake of evil is something quite different. So that's what Satan was trying to inject into humanity. The love of evil, the ability to choose to do evil. So God just had obedience first as his first command, that they would not partake of the tree. And God had already instilled in them the ability to know right and wrong, but it was the embracing of evil that opened the floodgates of sin, which is why now we are born in the likeness of Adam, with the propensity to sin. All right, so the words image and likeness do not refer to a visible or bodily likeness, so God is spirit, but to intellectual and moral likeness, likeness in knowledge, righteousness, and holiness of truth. Okay, so the manifestation of the spirit in visible form. So we've established that God is invisible. So we did a couple of verses to show that God is invisible. The image of the invisible God. We read in Timothy about immortal and invisible. Okay, so the manifestation of the spirit in visible form. So the spirit God, the invisible God, comes and presents himself to man in a visible form. So John 1:32. And John bare record, saying, I saw the Spirit descending from heaven like a dove, and it abode in him. Hebrews 1:7. And of the angels he saith, who makes his angels spirits, and his ministers a flame of fire. So angels also appear in a physical form sometimes. So the second proposition we would make is that which is spirit may manifest itself in visible form. So God and his angels are spirits, but they may manifest themselves in physical form. So the physical form is just a manifestation or an appearance. It is not their natural state. God was manifest in a visible form. So Exodus 24:9-10. Then went up Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet as it were a paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in his clearness. So the third proposition, God has in times past manifested himself in visible form. What was seen in these manifestations of God? So what did people see when God manifested himself in a physical form to communicate with man? So John 1:18. No man hath seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. He has made himself known through Jesus. Exodus 33:18-23. And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee, and will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, Thou canst not see my face, for there shall be no man see me and live. And the Lord said, Behold, there is a place by me, and thou shalt stand upon a rock. And it shall come to pass, while my glory passeth over, that I will put thee in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover thee with my hand while I pass by. And I will take away my hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, and my face shall not be seen. So the fourth proposition, that which was seen in the manifestations of God was not God himself. God in his invisible essence, but a manifestation of God. So is there any contradiction between Exodus 24:9-10, then went up Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 of the elders, and they saw the God of Israel? And Isaiah 6:1, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And John 1:18, no man hath seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. What's the answer? The answer is none whatsoever. To illustrate, a man may see the reflection of his face in a glass. It would be true for the man to say, I saw my face, and also true to say, I never saw my face. So men have seen a manifestation of God, and it is perfectly true to say that those men saw God. No man ever saw God as he is in his invisible essence. And so it is perfectly true to say no man hath seen God at any time. So no one has seen God in his true, invisible, pure essence. We have seen manifestations of God that have appeared to man from time to time. Under his head of manifestations of God belong the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament. Clear distinction is drawn in the Bible, in the original languages, between an angel of the Lord and the angel of the Lord. So if you look through your Bible, when it says the angel of the Lord, it predominantly always refers to God appearing in physical form. And an angel of the Lord refers to an angel. So Genesis 16:7-10 and verse 13. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence comest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself unto her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, and it shall not be numbered for multitude. And she called the name of the Lord that spoke unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? So she's saying she saw God, but what did she see? She saw an angel of the Lord, the angel of the Lord. So God appearing in a physical form so he could communicate with her. Here, the angel of the Lord in verse 10 is clearly identified with the Lord Jehovah in verse 13. So in verse 13, she said that I've seen God, and in verse 10 it says the angel of the Lord. So we can see in the context of that passage that the angel of the Lord is God. So Genesis 21, 17 to 18. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad, where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thy hand, for I will make him a great nation. Genesis 22, 11 to 12. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Here the angel of the Lord in verse 11 is once again identified with God in verse 12. Thou fearest God, in verse 12, and the angel of the Lord called unto him. So we can see that the angel of the Lord is God. In Judges 2, 1 to 2, and the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochum, and said, I have made you to go out of Egypt, and have brought you unto the land which I swore unto your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and ye shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but you have not hearkened to my voice. Why have you done this? Here the angel of the Lord distinctly says, I and my did what Jehovah did. So he's saying that the covenant, my covenant, the covenant that Jehovah made, that God made. So Judges 6, 11 to 14 and 19 to 24, especially verse 14, is also verses that talks about this. You can look those up as well. Another noteworthy passage is Genesis 18, 1, verses 2, 9, verse 10, verse 13 to 14, and verse 16. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. When he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of surety bear a child, which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. And the men rose up from thence, and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. In these verses, one of the 3 clearly identifies himself with the Lord or Jehovah, so God. In the 19th chapter, in verse 1, only 2 come to Sodom, not the 3. 1 has remained behind. 2 have gone on. Who the one was appears as we read on. So we can see this in Genesis 18, 17 to 20. And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham the things which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation? and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous. Then in verse 22 we read, Abraham stood before the Lord, Jehovah God. Clearly the one of the three who remained behind was Jehovah manifested in the form of man. In verse 33 the story continues. The Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham. Also in chapter 19 and verse 27. So the fifth proposition we make is the angel of the Lord is clearly identified with Jehovah, the visible manifestation of Jehovah God. So the question we have is, just who was this the angel of the Lord? So Judges 13:18. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore ask thou my name, seeing it is wonderful? Isaiah 9 verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So wonderful's in there. In the Hebrew, the word for wonderful in this passage is which the angel of the Lord gives as his name. So the same Hebrew word is used in both passages. It's practically the same as the word in Isaiah, where it is given as the name of the coming Christ. Malachi 3:1. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom you seek shall suddenly come to the temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom you delight in, and he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. So the angel of the Lord was the Son of God before his permanent incarnation. So John 8:56. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Now an interesting point is the angel of the Lord does not appear after the birth of Christ. So the angel of the Lord is the physical manifestation of God, so Jesus Christ coming to earth before his incarnation through Mary on earth, where he walked in human form. So the angel of the Lord was an angel taking human form, and God representing himself to man. So God is a spirit, and God as a spirit has chosen occasionally to appear to man, but we have never seen God in his true essence. So we can say we have seen God, but we have never seen God, if you get the difference. Okay, well, if you enjoyed that study, let us know if you want us to continue in this study and other studies. Subscribe to our channel. That's a great encouragement to us. Comments and likes is always positive. A like helps to lift our channel viewing, because the algorithm in YouTube then promotes it and sends it to other people or suggests it in their feeds. Check out our Facebook page and our web page. The links are on the YouTube channel. And thank you and God bless.